Wrong button.
Hey guys, welcome back. I was gonna give you a really cool backside view. Okay, I'm gonna do it anyway. Stand by. How we doing? Hit the like button. Welcome back to the Funker News Network, guys. I'm Ronnie, and I'll be your host once again tonight. I see everybody rolling in here. Welcome back. It's gonna be a good one today. I am feeling so much better after Monday's fundraising stream. But that fundraiser continues today because we still haven't hit our goal, and that's okay. We've still raised over $2,800 for Homes for Our Troops. So if you guys have a little bit extra to spare, Homes for Our Troops is a really awesome not-for-profit organization. They build custom and accessible housing for troops that have been severely wounded. So imagine if you were unable to make it up a flight of stairs into your home, or you couldn't roll yourself in a wheelchair up to cook your own food. That's the kind of stuff, those are the kind of problems that they solve, and we think that that's a great cause. So today is the last stream that'll be available, and I'd really like us to get as close as possible to that. Now, one more admin note before we get down too far into everything. We are dealing with a little bit of an outage problem on Funker 530. It seems to be pretty stable right now, but our video player site is where the problem is. It's not on our side, it's on their side. It's not us, it's them. But it happened a little bit earlier, about an hour and a half ago. Everything seems to be okay. I've been monitoring it sitting here while I was chatting with you guys, and everything looks to be okay. What I want to start off tonight with, though, is we're going to talk a little bit about the HIMARS, all right? Before we get into that, if everybody can let me know where you're chiming in from, I'm going to check in on the chat, say thank you to all of these donations that are coming across, but welcome back. It's good to see you, and happy Thursday. It's the day of Thor. Hit the like button. Let's talk about the HIMARS. So over the last 24, 48, 72, plus 24, beyond 72, whatever that math is, I failed Algebra 2 twice. Okay. We've learned that out of a $700 million aid package to Ukraine, there will be HIMARS. So what is a HIMARS? And what is the HIMARS? Who's a HIMARS? Never heard of her. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about why it's a big deal. Let's talk about why it's just as big, if not bigger, of a deal, even though it's only four systems, as the 777A2s. Right? For those that aren't familiar with the 777A2s, the M777-155 howitzers that were sent somewhere over 100 of them to Ukraine. You're looking at around a 30-kilometer range on those single-fire howitzer, but there are advanced munitions that are allowing that to reach out quite far. And Ukraine's been very effective with its artillery. The HIMARS. I'm going to show you guys a picture of the HIMARS. Is a multiple launch rocket system, but it stands for High Mobility Artillery Rocket System. Okay. Now the range on the HIMARS, and I'm just going to give you a very basic photo here. Stand by. That we're going to stare at while we talk about it. The range for the HIMARS is something like 70 kilometers, guys. So this is a HIMARS. I'm going to give you full screen here. This is a HIMARS. All right, it's got a 6-rocket pod on the back. It's GPS guided. Now, this is in contrast to the former Soviet era, the BM-27 and the BM-30, each of which can go all the way out to about 90 kilometers. But there are some pretty key differences. I don't want to get into a comparison and a contrast because I'm not an expert on either of these platforms, but over the last few days, I have been doing quite a bit of research on the HIMARS. I personally have seen the HIMARS in action in information operations. We actually used to use the HIMARS from, a kinetic effect perspective, right? The HIMARS firing into one location with its 6 rounds is actually an awesome sight. It's an awesome sight to see, whether you're watching it from the launch pad or you're watching it impact. We got to see what it looks like when it impacts. Now, the BM-27, the Uragan and the BM-30, those are manually reloaded. It takes a team of about 5 Russians or Ukrainians, both Russia and Ukraine, use the BM-27 and BM-30. Ukraine's just having a really hard time finding ammunition for it. Those are manually reloaded, and you can typically get one salvo off, and a total of, I want to say, 12 rockets inside of an hour, right? They run optical sights, so you're using plotting maps. You're using basically a sighting function where a soldier is actually standing there looking through an optic and turning a big ass wheel. I hit the bleep at the wrong time, but a big old wheel to essentially raise it up and lower it back down. That takes time, right? That is what Russia is most commonly fielding right now. Now, the HIMARS, fully automated system from a reload perspective, from a fire perspective, it is wheeled, so it can shoot and scoot, it can move. Well, let's talk about accuracy and range, too. So I mentioned it has a 70-kilometer range. In the Ukraine artillery video that we did, I did a video about Ukraine's effectiveness with artillery. I talked about circular error probable, right? And specifically with one of the more advanced 155 rounds that Ukraine was in receipt of, has a circular error probable of 4 meters. CEP, and I'm going to pull that up so I can just explain that because it's important to understand. CEP is effectively how many rounds are going to land, or excuse me, out of all projectiles fired. Your CEP is the total size in the center. Come on, you. Give me a second, guys. This doesn't want to load. There it is. There it is. So let's pull this up so I can gather my thoughts again. So if your CEP is 4 meters, circular error probable, what that means is 50% of all rounds or all munitions fired are going to land inside of a 4-meter circle. So that was with the 777, the 155, some of those advanced rounds that have been provided. Now, the HIMARS has a CEP of 5 meters. So when you fire all 6 of these rounds, at least 50% of them are going to fall inside of 5 meters. What's the CEP of the Uragan and the Smerch? 170 meters. Very, very different from a precision system perspective, right? Now, missiles are another thing that we can talk about, but, you know, that takes a little bit more time. It's likely that M30s are going to be what's provided, which is basically a big-ass shotgun. Over 160,000, like, tungsten balls are going to fly out of this thing once it flies up in the air. It's just absolute death. It's raining absolute death down on a very specific location. And the importance to that is what it now provides Ukraine the capability to do, right? So I want to pull up a Twitter thread here. I'm going to give you this, guys. I'm going to give you this thread because he actually put together a really great analysis on this. But I just want to pull up one of his maps. And I'm going to show you what this ultimately means for Ukraine. And it's in comparison specifically of the 777s. Right. It was a big deal when Ukraine got the 777s because it expanded their artillery range. I want to pull up a couple maps here. Check this out. So this is the Kherson area. Okay. And your 2 blue circles here, I just provided you guys that. The 2 blue circles here are the range of the 777s that we provided. Here's the range of a HIMARS. With a circular error probable of 5 meters and a range of 70 kilometers, they can strike anywhere in Kherson Oblast. Now, there's only 4 of these systems being provided, and they are vulnerable to a certain point, right? Not necessarily from ground fires because of how rapidly they can be reloaded. The HIMARS can be reloaded due to an automated crane that is already on the system, or I shouldn't say automated. There's a crane already installed on the HIMARS that aids in reloading the pod, right? So a salvo getting the HIMARS on location, receiving grid coordinates from a drone or from a forward observer, and firing a salvo can all happen inside of the measurement of like 5 minutes. Reloading the HIMARS, because of the crane that's available, takes infinitely less personnel. It is faster, so you're going to end up firing somewhere between 4 and 6 salvos inside of an hour, rather than the one for the Smerch and the Oregon. So Ukraine will be getting drastically increased range, extreme precision, whether it be the M30, M31, or M30A1 round that they receive. I actually intend to do a full deep dive video on all this stuff. And my brain's a little scattered on it because I was still researching it leading up to the live stream today. This is the type of weapon system that can turn a tide. Here is what Ukraine has to do to ensure that it's effective. They're only going to have 4 of these systems, and I've seen comments already like, "Oh, we're going to just give them our most advanced, rocket system." It's not. It's absolutely not the most advanced. The most advanced would technically be the M70A2, which they are not receiving. That is the most modern MLRS system that the United States Army fields, or that the United States military fields. But the most vulnerable, a HIMARS is most vulnerable to air. So what Ukraine is going to have to do to protect their HIMARS is ensure that anti-air capabilities are deployed alongside and with it. And we've seen lots and plenty of footage of Ukraine leveraging anti-air, everything from Stingers to Starstreak. They have anti-air capability. But Russia, from a ground fires perspective, they're not going to be able to use an Uragan or a Smerch to counter fire. It's going to be too slow. By the time they're on target, this thing will have shot and scooted out of there. This is a big deal. This is a big deal for Ukraine. They aren't going to last long. What makes you say that? Again, Ukraine needs to shoot and scoot with these. They need to not try to do multiple salvo, type missions. What they need to do is a lot like the way they're using the 777s now. They're using drones from a forward observation perspective, capturing GPS coordinates and providing it, back to precision fires. Precision fires are hitting exactly where they tell it to. We have video footage of that. And that's exactly what they need to do with this. And because it is self-propelled, they can set up, fire that salvo, and be off the X inside of minutes, 70 kilometers away. What do you think about this technology falling into Russian hands if they're captured? Sean, that's something that I was just kind of talking about there. This isn't our most advanced, rocket system. And Russia is working on similar upgrades to the BM-30. It's the 9K something odd or another. Let's look that up really quick. So this isn't our most advanced, right? The M70A2 would be our most advanced. Now, if we were providing that, which the guidance system inside is, I want to say, classified pretty high, that would start to raise a lot of questions. But at this point, we're only providing 4 HIMARS, and there is an intent to send more. But what the Defense Department has stated is we want to see how these are used before we send more HIMARS. Right, and it's probable that those are the kinds of things we're looking for. Are you able to defend it? Are you keeping it from being from counterfires? How are you using it? Are you placing it in one spot and just sending it? Standing your ground, just spraying and praying with it. The way it needs to be used is very guerrilla-esque, which is a lot like they're using Ukraine is using its artillery. Shoot and move. They are deploying individual and at maximum that I've seen, like duo howitzers firing, packing up, and leaving. And that's exactly what they need to be doing with the HIMARS. Guys, thank you for becoming members. Look at all these members coming across. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. That's so awesome. Thank you so much. M270 and HIMARS use the same rockets. That's absolutely right. Yep. The major differences between the M270. I'll show you the M270 and the HIMARS. There's a couple of them. The 270 is tracked, first of all. Stand by. Let me get a good up close picture of it here. Yeah, that's a good one. There you go. So this is the M270 MLRS. So the M270 is tracked. There are 3 technical versions of the M270. You have the M270, the base configuration. You have the M270A1 and then the M270A2, I believe. I didn't spend a whole lot of time on this, more the HIMARS system. So that's the first difference, is that these are tracked. HIMARS is wheeled. Now, the second difference is that there are actually 2 pods here, right? You can see the 1 pod on the HIMARS, and there are actually 2 pods on the MLRS, on the M270. Now, you can load both pods at the same time on the MLRS, whereas you're in a 6-shot capacity. Right? You got a 6-shooter here, as opposed to, dual wielding akimbo 6-shooters. Now, the next difference is actually going to be the guidance system that's inside. Like I mentioned, the M270A2's guidance system is very much so classified, a little bit more advanced than the HIMARS system is. But even still, both of these systems are, well over. Goodness, how old is the HIMARS? I want to look that up really quick. That's one thing. I dove down into technical specifications, but not necessarily. Developed in the late 1990s. That's not necessarily cutting edge technology, right? Let's send another 40 billion. We didn't send 40 billion. That's not how that worked. It wasn't a $40 billion check that was written to Ukraine. It was a $40 billion authorization for us to then use. It was spread out amongst all different agencies, organizations. It's basically allocating that budget. It's a lot. We're in the same boat with that comment. I just want to make sure people understand that that's not how that 40 billion works. A few weeks ago, we actually went line by line through that 40 billion to see exactly what was going where. I'm just checking in on the chat here. Now, I do want to warn you out there. If you're from a Russian bot farm, troll farm, I have let loose the dogs of moderators, and they're hounded. Right? For a long time, we weren't doing a whole lot of moderation in the chat because we think that discussion is healthy. What it's turned into, though, is somewhat of a combative chat, which keeps new community members from joining, and we don't want that. You can have a dissenting opinion without being combative, right? That's 2 adults having a conversation that they disagree about. So if you get combative in the chat, it's probably true that you're going to be smacked on the PP and sent about your business, okay? Your freedom of speech it protects you in America from being prosecuted. It doesn't necessarily protect you from being an asshole in the Funker530 chat. Just a heads up. Tuesday's chat was awful. Yep. The team and I talked about it. All right, let's jump into the footage here. We've got a lot of footage to go through. The first thing that we're anyway, HIMARS, big deal, actually. I didn't do it a whole lot of justice, but I intend to do a very deep dive type video explaining how exactly the HIMARS can turn the tide, even in small numbers, but B, how Russia will try to counter it, which again is going to be air. Russia doesn't still have air superiority, but their combined arms doctrine, technically, you don't have to have air superiority. They use air superiority, or they use air from to support ground offensives rather than as a separate warfighting domain, the way we do. 30-kilometer range is max USA will supply to Ukraine. That is not true. That is not true. The M30, M31, and M31A1 all have the capability of going out to 70 kilometers. Now, there is an additional there are other rounds or missiles, I should say. The ATACMS, the Army Tactical Missile System, that can go all the way out to 300 kilometers. Those are not being provided. Now, there's also a discussion and an agreement from Ukraine to both the United States and to Russia that any of these weapon systems that are being provided to Ukraine by the United States are not to be used to strike into Russia. I'm not going to overanalyze that. I'll let you take that on your own and do with what you like. Let's check out our first video here because we've only got about 45 minutes left to go, and we've got a lot of stuff. Now, the first part of this video is the only part we're going to be able to watch. The end of it is very not safe for work and not something that YouTube is going to be very appreciative of me presenting on the channel. But that's why we have our own website and our own app. And if you guys would like to jump in there, I'll give you the link to it. You'll be able to watch the end of the video. I'll tell you what's there. It's up to you if you want to watch it. It's a dead guy. This video is coming up for you now. And what we're looking at here is very close quarters fighting. Ukrainians assaulting in an unknown location. It's just a wooded location, a Russian position. Okay, coming up for you guys full screen now. I'm going to check in with the chat.
Отходьте, хто ззаді.
Everyone wants to see the dead guy. We'll go to the website. I'm not going to show it to you here. We will have a second part of this video, Rachel. RC, gotcha.
Края!
All right, we're about to end it here. So that's as far as we can go. I'm going to paste that link again for you guys in the chat. The end of that video is very much so not safe for work. There's a dead guy in it. But let's watch another view of that. And I think this next view actually took place a little bit prior. And that's coming up for you guys right now. Stand by. Pause you. There we go. Coming up now, full screen again. No, we do believe it's a deceased Russian. Fire up. Hey, Andrew.
Чё вы, блядь, остались на месте, блядь? Крейта!
See you later, nerd. All right. So there's that one. Again, the first portion of that we watched is actually, I think, on a timeline after the second, right? I played those in backwards order just simply because I'm an idiot. Okay, but here is the link once again to the first one. The ending is very not safe for work because there's a dead dude in it. And the next one as well, there's going to be an ending to it that we won't be able to show you here. But again, that's why we have our own platform. If you're not familiar with Funker 530, we have our own platform so that nobody can tell us what to show and what not to. Right? It's important that people understand the gravity of war and that Hollywood stops glorifying it in certain ways. That is our fundamental mission. So when you see something nasty on the site, it's not because we do war porn. We do not. We care very much so about showcasing what war and law enforcement use of force encounters look like. This next one coming up for you here is going to be a mortar cook-off in the back of a Russian truck. This is not, it doesn't appear as though it's for any other reason than a small drone munition that's been dropped that actually hits away from the vehicle, but it looks like a small piece of fragmentation, the primary or secondary fragmentation, made its way onto a mortar on the back of this truck, which then sets off a secondary. It appears that all the Russians were able to make it off the truck, though. It's coming up for you guys right now. Careful name drop in Hollywood. I don't care. What are they going to do? Fire me? Coming up. Full screen. Copywritten music. Going to have to keep that off. So you saw that round that impacted right here. Let's turn that back for a second. You saw a round impact here. And then you have a mortar that ignites on the back. Now we're going to get a close-up view of this. So this one ignites, then that one ignites. This guy makes it off. Tuck and roll. Now this is the one I can't show you. I'm going to pause that right there. What you're going to watch if you follow this link, what you're going to watch is this mortar land directly in the middle of a grouping of Russians. There's a group of 3 or 4 Russians here, and that mortar lands right in the middle of them. And I don't know if anybody ends up surviving that. But we're not going to be showing you that here. This is YouTube's platform, and we try to abide by their rules. We recently got a strike against us because I tried to push that envelope. I tried to push the boundaries of what we show you here. And we received a strike, the first one in 14 years. And it's my fault. So that's why we're not going to do that. Because we still do rely on our social media platforms to reach you. Especially for those that haven't downloaded the app or aren't regular visitors to the website. All right, next one here. The Switchblade 300. We've got some slow-mo launch video of this. The Switchblades have been talked about quite a bit, and the 300 is essentially the anti-personnel version of the Switchblades. Nice work, Mosen. I see you working. Coming up for you guys right now, and I think it's just really interesting to see how it deploys right after it exits the launcher. Mission Impossible theme, gonna keep that off. And please, if you don't mind, tap on the like button for us, please and thank you. Yeah, and if I slip up and show you guys something I shouldn't, I want to. I want to show you every bit of footage that we have. Like that first video. I didn't see anybody get harmed. I will make an overt effort to avoid showing you things like that. If I slip up and miss one or two, it happens. Is it right of the So the only part of this that I kind of got distracted that I wanted to note was watch the deployment of the wings and the tail fins. Here, I'm going to kill the music really quick. So right there, you can catch the deployment of those wings and the tail fins, and then it's off to go find something to fall on. All right. If it's copywritten, then I'll edit it later on. The next video is, I don't have a location for this necessarily, but this is, it looks a lot like the area near Kharkiv. I've seen a lot of photos of Kharkiv, and it just looks like a beautiful landscape that is absolutely ridden with hellish polka dots. That's the biggest thing that I really wanted to show you here is what these fields of Ukraine look like now. And that's coming up for you guys here now. But what we're going to watch is a Russian armored column being targeted by Ukrainian artillery. I'm going to give you this view. There is no sound to this one. Just look at the landscape here. I'm going to move myself all the way out of the way. Look at that. Now, the Kharkiv comment is really just a shot in the dark, because a very large part of Ukraine looks like this. This could be anywhere in the east. It could be from somewhere down near Zaporizhia. Who knows where it is? So take that with the smallest grain of salt that you can imagine. What artillery is this? It's hard to know. Pretty widespread impact area, though. As Ukrainian moles are huge. What are they feeding those things? Let me check in on the chat while we're watching, or on the... alerts. Paul, thank you for becoming a member. Mr. Malas, thank you for becoming a member. Kim, thank you for becoming a member. Anthony, thank you for becoming a member. A whole bunch of letters, thank you for becoming a member. And Perennial Millennial, thanks for becoming a member. Thank you guys all. We appreciate it. We're a team. We're a small team, 6 people that really are focused on documenting war. Now, on YouTube, we had a very vast library of Syrian civil war footage. Not too long ago, a lot of that was subsequently removed by YouTube. The great Syrian civil war purge of content. For reasons like that, that's why Funker530 exists, is for one place, funker530.com and the app, for you to go to find footage. If you wanted to search artillery, if you wanted to see what artillery looks like, if you wanted to search defensive use of a handgun, you would be able to go to funker530.com or to the app and search for that, and it'll come up for you right away. No, you know how to make a girl blush. Who's flying the drone? Probably your, technically speaking, your FO, right? So what What Ukraine essentially does, and Russia has started doing this as well, is uses smaller commercial type drones that have GPS guidance built in, that allows them to send coordinates back to, you know, their battery, and the battery enters those coordinates and just sends it. All right, let's move on to the next one here. And we actually have it's going to be, when we get to the non-Ukraine footage for today, we're going to have an interesting one. We're going to have a whole nother segment provided by some other asshole that absolutely nobody should listen to, but we'll get to that when we get there. The next one's interesting, up near Severodonetsk. That's been pretty heavily in the news lately. But this is the third time this has happened, that Russia has struck a nitric acid tank. Nitric acid, I failed chemistry. Let me just throw that out there. And I spent more time researching HIMARS over nitric acid. But my understanding of nitric acid is that it's very, very toxic when inhaled, and it looks pretty nasty when it's in the air. So this, if I'm not mistaken, is the third time that Russia has struck a nitric acid tank. And the thought that comes to mind is, tell me you're this is the wrong thing to say, but tell me you're using chemical weapons without showing me you're using chemical weapons. Coming up for you guys right now. Fourth time, Miklos, is it? Where can I get the Picatinny cup? This is a battle mug. This is from I have no relationship with Battle Mug. My OIC gave me this on my first deployment back in 2013, and I love it. It's what I drink my beer. I mean, water out of. Battlemug.com. I love them. Look at that. Now I've got another view of this that I think we're still working on putting on the site. Under 99% of circumstances, every video that we watch here, if you ever have a question, hey, I gotta go back and I gotta find the link to that video that the Funker guys showed, it's always going to be in the stream description. If I screw that up, I will figure it out after the stream, because oftentimes I am copying and pasting from the stream description into my browser. Now, the other view of this, let's pull that up really quick. It just gives a little bit clearer of a view. Here you are. Of that cloud. And they are... it's just, I don't know. I think it's time... It's time to unass that spot right there, to be honest with you. Yeah? They're looking at it like, what is that? It's probably not something you want to be next to, guys. Was that a deadly cloud, or would it float away? My understanding of nitric acid is that it's very deadly in gaseous form. Or I don't know, it could always be in a gaseous form. But that is a nope cloud. And you don't want to be there where they are.
Що це таке, їбать? Я тебе говорю, що там, блядь, на селітру похоже. Що? Що там на селітру похоже, блядь. А що це за хуйня?
Terrifying. All right. Let's move on to the next one here. This one's an interesting one. Russian perspective footage. Inside of an attack helo, or inside of a helo of some kind, probably an alligator. But what we're going to see is we're going to see both the targeter's screen, and we're going to see basically from the nose of the aircraft, which I think is really awesome. This one was blogged by Osti, a former Army infantryman. Coming up for you guys right now. I'm going to give you full screen. I'm going to check in on the chat. No sound for this one, it appears.
Давай
Okay.
быстрее, блядь.
Блядь, все, ничего не...
Установил.
Сейчас. Ну вот, да. Сейчас.
Давай, 6600 уже.
723, работайте, есть добро.
Все работает.
Пошли.
723, работай, добро есть.
723, понял. 10, 9, 8.
723, за рубеж, не заходи.
723, понял. 3, 2, 1, пуск.
Thanks, Excavation. We're a whole team, all putting effort in for what you guys see Tuesdays and Thursdays.
127, ухожу на повторный.
Смотри экран.
Давай, поехал. 13, 12. Отхожу потихонечку. 10, 9, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 1. Пуск. Есть.
Крен велик. Крен велик. Атака сзади. Гепард.
Нормально, давите.
All right. So again, that was basically the gunner's view and view from the nose of the aircraft there. Thanks for the 20 Canadian there, Rod. Guys, I wanted to take a break before we go into the next footage section and ask if you wouldn't mind just checking out Homes for Our Troops. They do really great work providing affordable, or excuse me, they donate and build custom and accessible housing for severely wounded veterans. We are a team of veterans. Supporting veterans and veteran community is fundamentally what we is like. That's really why everything originally started. Is we just wanted to share combat footage with other vets and provide a platform for other vets. The mission has continued to evolve and change, but that origin still exists. So consider any inch that we can get towards that 5K goal is going to be really helpful. Let's move into footage section 2. So, like I've mentioned a few times, our focus is not specifically Ukraine. Our focus is global conflict, global war. Footage section 2 is always going to be non-Ukraine specific footage to help give you some perspective on what else is happening across the globe. First thing we're going to see is Nigerian soldiers fighting Boko Haram in Sabisa, Nigeria, using armored vehicles. Most should be familiar with Boko Haram. They kind of came to prominence, or at least came into the public light in 2014 when they kidnapped over 200 young girls. If I'm not mistaken, only about 100 of those girls have been released to date. Here you guys go.
This is Sambisa. Go to Maiduguri, Baka. Belarus, you are there. We are under attack. We are under attack.
Roll that again for you.
We are under attack. This is Sambisa. Go to Maiduguri, Baka. Belarus, you are there.
Now, Boko Haram was founded in 2002 by a dude. I'm not going to call him a gentleman. Mohammed Yusuf. They have backlink ties to an alphabet soup worth of established terrorist organization. So this next one's actually very interesting. This is going to come out of Syria. So if you're familiar with the SPG-9, I did a Funker News Network edited episode on the SPG-9. It's a recoilless rifle designed to be fired off of a tripod platform. Its precursor was a weapon system known as the B-10. The B-10 is also a big gun designed to be fired off of a platform. Well, this dude decides that he's going to pick this bad boy up and shoulder fire it out of towards a enemy position, and it's heavy. It's big. Check this out. That's not how that's supposed to work. This is supposedly the enemy location. Now that, again, that is a Free Syrian Army fighter, which basically is an umbrella term for myriad organizations that fall under it. They change alliances the same amount of times that I change shirts. I don't do the pants thing, so I can't really say the same amount of times I change pants. I don't change pants that often because I don't wear pants. Are you sure that wasn't his location? I'm going to cover that here in just a second. Okay. So let's look at this a little bit closer. So that is not his location, because I thought the same thing, right? You've got a piece of debris coming off of the wall here on the right. Now, here is the big question mark, though. We have there is nothing to say that this just isn't footage that's been spliced together, right? We just call it the way the footage reports. You know, if we're able to find additional context or something to indicate, you know, something that we can provide that helps, you know, like I said, give that context on a video, we do that. But the way this was reported is, you know, homeboy picked that bad boy up, put it on his shoulder, and hit that spot. Just giving you what was reported. All right, the next one, and this is our last video, technically speaking, before we get back into the Ukraine footage, and we got to hustle here. I got a hot date at 7:15 tonight, Eastern time. This is Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, which we're going to watch another video that's going to explain who the hell that is and why that matters. Essentially overrunning the Islamic State. Now, this is... Josh did a really excellent write-up on this, and I want to give you guys a link to his post. Josh is a Marine machine gun infantryman, knows a lot about small unit tactics, and provided a little bit of insight on, you know, what technical phase of an ambush would be. And specifically, this would be the exploitation phase. So I gave you guys a link to that. I'd strongly recommend going over there and, you know, maybe providing Josh a link to where he can pick up some more red crayons. But let's take a look at this, and then we're going to watch a video segment from another idiot who's going to explain who Hayat Tahrir al-Sham is. This is coming up for you guys right in 3 seconds. Here you go, full screen. Everybody loves a good nasheed. Scorch, my hot date is with you over on my other channel. Now, for those that don't know, this is not technically a song. What it is essentially, I want to say like Quran verses that are read in a certain way to sound like music. And it's called a nasheed. Now, what you're looking at is Hayat Tahrir al-Sham down here on the lower side of the compound, assaulting to what would be the northwest. Now, Josh's analysis about this specifically notes that that's what's called the exploitation phase. Essentially, when you overrun your target and they all, you know, unass and run the other direction, what you do is you try and engage as many of them as possible so that they don't have the ability to regroup and conduct a counterattack. But a lot of you might be asking, who is Hayat Tahrir al-Sham and why do we want to dive in a little bit further? Well, actually, because they are using the war in Ukraine to exploit other people in Syria right now. Specifically speaking, they've raised the prices on flour from an export perspective to keep the people from Syria essentially under their thumb. So what we're going to watch is we're going to watch a quick segment. It's going to take 3 minutes of your time on who Hayat Tahrir al-Sham is from some other idiot. And I think you guys are going to enjoy it. Welcome to the original Funker News Network.
كانت الأمور أسهل مما كنا نتصور رغم أنه هذا المكان كان له أهمية.
The video you just watched likely takes place somewhere in Syria given the active regions of al-Nusra. Although I don't have a direct translation available, I would assume his speech specifically was speaking about the socioeconomic impacts on the auto blow with relation to the Tinder industry. Regardless, his speech is cut short when mortars land literally within feet of him, presumably keeping us from his wisdom forever. What's the al-Nusra Front? Let's dive in for a second and talk a little bit about al-Nusra's origins. The al-Nusra Front, or the Front of the Supporters of the People of Syria or the Levant, was technically formed in December 2011 when two al-Nusra suicide bombers attacked military intelligence facilities in Damascus, killing 44 and injuring over 150. You see, that same year, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, the leader of al-Qaeda in Iraq, sent an AQI operative, Abu Mohammed al-Julani, to Syria to organize jihadist cells. Al-Julani would go on to found the al-Nusra Front as what was for a short time known as al-Qaeda in Syria. Although the group conducted that first attack in 2011, they didn't formally declare their existence until January, closely following in the next year, 2012. Although its origins and early alignment can be attributed to al-Qaeda, in 2013, al-Nusra and al-Qaeda started picking at each other when AQI's leader, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, claimed that al-Nusra was part of the Islamic State. Al-Baghdadi's leadership below him maintained that al-Nusra was an independent AQ branch, and after a period of tensions, al-Nusra began targeting the Islamic State. Now, the Islamic State began capturing al-Nusra's oil fields, and they also presumably had a whole bunch of old-school KY jelly fights in a big old blow-up pool, because by 2014, al-Nusra had aided in driving out the Islamic State from Raqqa with al-Sham. Fast forward to 2016, and after being shamed for having global aspirations with AQI by al-Sham, rather than focusing specifically on Syrian unity, al-Nusra ended its affiliation with AQ and changed its name to Jabhat Fatah al-Sham, or easier, the Front for the Conquest of the Levant. Now, even after that rebrand, and just to further solidify the stagnant pond water that you already thought this was, al-Sham and Fatah al-Sham started having issues with each other, remembering they go way back, and they were capturing each other's fighters. They eventually made up, don't worry. They had an identity crisis again, though, in 2017 and decided to change their name to Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, or shorter, Tahrir al-Sham. They also began accepting mergers with some of the smaller factions, also acting like big old Richards out there. Now, that's the quick and dirty background of the al-Nusra Front, or whatever they're called today. Hit the like, hit the sub, hit the bell, and stay informed. I don't like that guy. He makes me feel funny. All right, let's move on to footage section 3, guys. So that's Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, and essentially some of their history. It is muddy water in Syria. We actually did a full part 1 deep dive into the Syrian civil war, essentially how it came to be, who's doing what, but it became so convoluted and complicated for us to put together. It was like we took a shotgun blast full of darts and threw it at a wall. It's just impossible to follow. You've got extremist organizations changing sides in daily over simple stuff like honestly, this happened. Whose pig was whose? All right, let's move on though. So we've got our last section of Ukraine footage for the night. And we saved a couple bangers here. Some really solid footage. This first one is... there we go. That's the one I'm looking for. So, there are a lot of questions about Mariupol and how Ukraine was resupplying its forces in Mariupol. We've got some footage from early in the Mariupol siege of, how Ukraine was originally doing that. Hot tip, it's low-flying choppers nap of the earth all the way into Mariupol, but eventually they had to stop doing that because the missions were considered unsurvivable. Coming up for you guys now. Copywritten music, gonna keep that off. who has the cash will join them. Pat the horse, you're to an extent not wrong there. So essentially what we're looking at is dropping off personnel reinforcements. I would assume that they were also accompanied by supplies, beans, bullets, that kind of stuff. But very, very low nap of the earth flying here. I mean, they're, 50 feet off the ground. Very low. And what that actually helps you do is avoid anti-air fires. By the time you come into view, you're already out of view before, under most circumstances, you're able to get a lock and engage with anti-air systems, with manpads. All right. We've watched that one. The next one. It's our second to last video of the night here. Incendiary munitions. So we've seen a lot of footage at this point of what looks to most, a lot of people are saying white phosphorus. Somebody in chat, and I can't get it out of my brain. Every time I see this footage, or footage of this munition, I can't get it out of my brain. Let me turn on dark mode here. This is killing me. There we go. Somebody called them murder sparkles, and I can't not think about that when I see them now. But I'm going to show it to you, and I'm going to help you understand exactly what these are, at least what these are believed to be. Coming up for you now. So while it looks beautiful, they would be better described as murder sparkles. Now, there is some fact check work out there that basically says we can't rule out that this is phosphorus, but what it's more likely that it is, and I'm not saying that it's any better, is a combination of primarily magnesium, aluminum, and other, small, elements. Essentially, to the recipient on the ground, next to no difference. Now, is this one of those situations where Russia is able to say, we're not using white phosphorus? It's not white phosphorus. And the analysis that the supposed expert that I read applied against it, that technically ruled in likely in favor of this being what's known as the 9M22S munition, is the smoke trails. Now let's look at that same munition being used over Azovstal. Here we go. It's coming up for you guys in just a second. And note the general lack of a white smoke trail. Coming up for you guys full screen here. So your smoke trails aren't very thick here on these sub-munitions. So the 9M22S has 160, I want to say 160,000 of these sub-munitions that fall. Ultimately, what it's there to do is just burn everything underneath of it. This was a few weeks ago, quite a few weeks back, in Azovstal. This is Azovstal. But these are reportedly magnesium rounds, not necessarily white phosphorus. Now, does that matter if it has the same effect? I actually asked that question legitimately to you guys. The difference is the magnesium won't poison you, okay? Not if you're on the receiving end. That's what I mentioned earlier, is as the individual standing underneath of it, I don't want to be underneath of that. No, but to a lawyer, yes. And that's the semantics kind of piece that I was speaking to. Is this a situation where you have essentially the same effect, maybe minus the poisoning? I am not an expert on phosphorus, where you have the same effect on target, but you're kind of in the clear just simply because it's not using phosphorus. All right, let's move on to the last piece of footage here. Russian perspective footage here, showing not the original strike, but a Ukrainian vehicle and a secondary explosion sometime after a piece of Russian ordnance has hit it. This, if I'm not mistaken, did take place up near Kharkiv. Pretty nasty explosion here. But the reason I showed you guys that, and then we're just going to put this up on the screen, is I want to follow along with the chat with what you guys think about the magnesium versus phosphorus kind of thing. Hello, lovely. Oh, sorry. Wife walks into screen. You get real distracted. Magnesium is way less dangerous. Okay. Anonymous, thanks for the $5 there. Magnesium is the Walmart brand of phosphorus. Oh, so it's like dollar store phosphorus. Still spicy either way. Yeah, murder sparkles. Like I said, I can't get that out of my head because that it quite honestly is the best way to describe that. Yeah, massive cook-off there. Great value. Magnesium doesn't stick like phosphorus. Okay, that's an interesting point. All right, that's the last footage that I had for us today. I'm still following along a little bit in the chat. I'd like to say thanks to our mod team for swinging in and helping out a little bit with the chat. Again, there's nothing wrong with having dissenting opinion, and we actually encourage that. And we kind of just sat back for a long while. But of late, it's gotten a little hectic, and we're going to be starting to step in. You can have a dissenting opinion without being an absolute asshole. Okay? We're a community of people, of like-minded people that just want to see what war looks like, see footage from on the ground. I'm not trying to provide any spin to you. I'm trying to give it to you as close to face value as I possibly can. I don't claim to be an expert on any of this stuff. But we do have a passion for showing people what the world truly looks like, especially combat, conflict, and use of force. I did want to put at the end here, I did want to put one more note out there for anybody that's able to spare a couple bucks to our fundraiser in support of Homes for Our Troops. Homes for Our Troops does custom accessible housing. They build it, and then they donate it to soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, to wounded veterans that, basically need a little bit of help in their home life. If you imagine needing, I used this example earlier, special countertops or, a ramp, right? Homes for Our Troops has a really amazing cause, a really great mission, and we're really excited to be supporting them again. We have supported them in the past with some fundraising. So any little bit that you can do to get us closer to that 5K goal, this is the last stream for it that will have it connected. But it'll still be available on the video if you guys want to end up coming back here. We appreciate it. That's all for me tonight. I'm going to continue my live tonight over on my channel. It's going to redirect you over there anyway. I hope you swing by. We can hang out, chat. I'm going to be playing Hell Let Loose, kicking back and just separating from the world a little bit. And I hope to see you there. Stay informed.
Форма нове.